Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Habs tonight. Today's a particularly exciting day for a couple of reasons. As you guys know, we're going to get to our guest, Dan Robertson, in a minute. But before we do, I want to welcome back my main man, one of our founding OG members of Habs tonight, Brandon Legacy. Brando, it's so good to see you, buddy.
Nice to see you too. It's been a long 6 months, entertaining 6 months as we brought Easton into the world. So life's been pretty busy on the backside of things here, but happy to be back recording some podcasts, having some fun, and talking about the Habs.
Yeah, well, what better day for you to pick than your guy, fellow? Now, is it Nova Scotian or let me just clarify for the East Coast specific. I'll let you explain that.
Yeah, so Dan would be Nova Scotian. I'm New Brunswicker. But we are East Coast Maritimers, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, he is from this side. Happy to have him on. And I've been really looking forward to this one. As soon as you said we were getting Dan Robertson on, I was really excited. I am one of those ones that mutes the TV and plays TSN 690 when Dan is calling the games with Sergio Momesso. So really looking forward to this one.
Well, you're right, though. You were definitely excited because your text back to me was 2 words when I asked you if you would do the episode, and you're like, yes, please.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
let's bring him on without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen. You know him as the play-by-play man for the Montreal Canadiens, Mr. Dan Robertson. Welcome to Habs tonight, Dan.
Thanks. I wish I still looked like that picture that you just put up of me. That's like I think I was 33 years old then, and I'm not anymore. But it's good to be on with you guys. How are you?
Very well. Well, as you can see, our buddy Brando here was giving you the great intro because he's a big fan. We all are. I do listen to you on TSN as well. Especially, I have like a routine of I work for the OHL Ice Dogs Arena here in Niagara, and on the way back after the game, I throw on 690 to catch the end of the third period with you and Sergio. That's like my routine, my ritual. And then when I can take in more games, I certainly try to as well. But that being said, we got a bunch of stuff we want to go through today with you, Dan. And I think we'll lead with something that's kind of a little interesting. It's not necessarily Habs related, Dan, but you came to mind as soon as this incident happened, and I wanted to get your take on it as a play-by-play individual. And we're referring to the Tyson Nash incident and what happened there with Jay Beagle. So we know that things get dicey with play-by-play live. When you're live, I don't think everybody appreciates how hard it is to do live sports commentary. But based on what we heard, a lot of people upset with Tyson Nash and his comments on this incident, but just wanted to get your take on this incident, maybe from the broadcasting side and also from the hockey side as well.
You're right. First of all, it's not easy to be on a live microphone and during a game. I've said some things that I shouldn't have said in the past. Nothing egregious, but one of those things where you look back and think, I probably would have been better served to not say that. The other thing is too, and I don't agree with what he said. I don't think that way. I don't think because a kid shows a lot of skill that he should necessarily be ready to face any kind of physical music, so to speak. But the world being the way it is, all of a sudden everybody comes crashing down on him, and he's a rockhead and he's a caveman, and it's just, it gets to be abusive in that way, and that kind of bothers me. That's the world we live in, I guess. And
yeah,
you knew the second that he said that it would happen. That's the kind of player he was. And yeah, he's from I hate to use the term old school. I find that a little bit cliche, but that's the way it was when he played. He thinks that way. I don't agree with it. A lot of people don't, as we saw, but I don't necessarily think you have to tear somebody apart for something they said on like that. It's just it left a bad taste in my mouth.
Well, that's a perspective I don't think we've heard yet, right? Because I think everybody's trying to protect the player and the future of the game, and how this is a speed and scale game that we're really going more and more towards. So that being said, from the hockey side, no real response from the league on what many consider to be not necessarily an assault, but I mean, like Troy had no opportunity to even attempt to throw a punch in this fight. So it wasn't even really a fight, Dan. So from the hockey side of it, how did you see it?
Yeah, that was a little bit ugly too. Then on the other side, I saw, well, that's terrible. They beat him senseless. I wish we didn't trade Nick Delorier. Well, what was Nick Delorier going to do? He was going to fight, right? So it's kind of
Yeah.
funny, but no, it's we would all, I think, like to see that sort of thing get out of the game. There, even what did I see last night? Maybe you guys can help me. Somebody put a hit on somebody, and PK Subban sprinted across the ice and just started to pound on this kid, and he didn't want to fight either. So it's, I don't know, it's something that I hope changes over time. But if you look at it, by the same token, it wasn't that long ago when every team had 2 or 3 guys that were just there to fight, and we don't see that anymore. So I think we all know the game's going in a better direction. Things don't change overnight. Sometimes we wish they would change a little more quickly than they do, but I think we'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just kind of just to change subjects now. You said it's a new game and it's going to a new area. I'm curious what your thoughts on from watching the Montreal Canadiens at the start of the year, and then now with this new regime change with Marty St. Louis, Kent Hughes, Jeff Gordon. What's one big takeaway you've seen as this new regime came in and kind of playing a different style as you are the ones that take in the game every night?
I think the main thing is that the pressure came off, the black cloud lifted, and I'm not saying Ducharme was that black cloud. I think he coached with leaning too much on systems and not coaching players, so to speak, and he was too rigid. And I know you didn't ask me specifically about him, but I think once that change was made, and it's worth remembering that in his last handful of games, I mean, his goaltenders were not giving him a save, and that was kind of a byproduct too of injuries and some players a couple of goaltenders not being ready to play, really. Caden Primo went through a tough time, and Montembeault was as well. But then the change was made, and I think their skill has been allowed to shine. And there's been a lot of talk about guys having fun at practice. I mean, today, Martin St. Louis was asked about that and the different practices they have and the way they practice. And he said, guys are having fun because they get a lot of touches. They get the puck a lot. And it's almost like minor hockey league practices in a lot of ways, or minor hockey practices, I should say, not league, where guys are engaged in these small area games that we keep hearing so much about. That's part of it. But I just think that something had to break when things were going so poorly, and you looked and thought, really, there's 40 more games of this, or whatever it was, 35. So I think all along the team was better potentially than they had shown, and they just needed something to stir things up. And boy, I was probably like a lot of people when I heard the rumor. I think it was Kevin Weeks who broke it, saying that St. Louis would be the next coach. I thought, no, he won't. He's never coached. But there you go. They think outside the box, and you don't have to have coached at any high level necessarily to be a good coach. So far so good, but just thankfully, I mean, win or lose, to imagine things had they kept going the way they would have been, that would have just been horrible. And I don't know if anybody would have been coming to the games had they stayed that way.
Yeah, and just quickly, Deeks, I want to jump back in. Along with the regime change, you saw Chantal Maccabi get a start here. And as for media members like yourself, Dan, who get to talk to these guys every day, I was reading what you said about Harris in the elevator down in Tampa just the other day. Mm-hmm. And she's been trying to, and I guess kind of how we got successful with this show is when we were interviewing guys in the summertime, was just pulling that, just the real person out. You're not trying to get those cliche answers. And I'm curious from your perspective as a media member talking to these guys every day, asking questions, the addition with Chantal Maccabi and bringing these guys out, and even Caulfield saying, or alluding to anyways, that he was told to just cliche it up, just don't give the ammo. How's it like now as a media member asking questions and finally getting some real questions and some real answers?
I don't know that it's changed that much. I really like hearing that about what Cole said, because you can see it where he's a happy-go-lucky kid, and then when he first came to the team, and you're kind of waiting for some personality to show. And it's too bad that was always the way that they wanted it to be, that, the Canadiens control the message so much. But I say it hasn't changed much. Like today, we spoke with Jake Allen, who New Brunswicker
Yeah, Fredericton guy,
is
me.
a brilliant guy. Oh, you're from Fredericton, okay?
Yeah.
Brilliant guy, and so he kind of speaks the same way. Gallagher, who's a veteran. I mean, year by year, ever since I started, you could see him get more and more confident with things that he's saying. I think that's going to take a while to kind of permeate the roster, and it's not for everyone. I mean, if you look at Yoel Armia, for example, there's a guy who's so nervous that I think he'd rather do anything than speak in front of people, and that's not to make fun of him. That's just the way it is. I don't think Jeff Petry's necessarily comfortable, despite the fact that he's been around forever and a day, and so some guys just aren't that comfortable. But that message, if it gets out there, that's going to be great because, and obviously Jordan Harris. I mean, he's a guy who's new, and I would think they'll, like everybody else, hopefully encourage him to be himself. But when you hear somebody kind of just be at ease at the microphone, it helps. It helps the fans. I mean, that's what the media does, is try to, pass the message on to the fans. That's why we're here. So I think when you see that these are interesting, engaging people, and not everybody is interesting and engaging, but when it shows, I think it's a great thing.
We saw that the other night too. Cole was mic'd up, and we heard him talking French, Dan, for probably the first time. I don't know if you had a chance. It kind of made its rounds with the fans on social media. But again, that personality thing. And Brandon's right, because when Dale started this show, you've had the chance to talk to Dale many times over the years also. And he mentioned how there's so many personalities that are just undercover. So that's good to see now again too. And also too, I wanted to follow up on that.
Can I tell you a quick Dale Weiss story?
Yes, please. Oh, please do.
Okay, so, sorry to cut in.
No, go ahead.
I was thinking about it earlier. My first year on the job was 2014, and I wasn't a kid. I was 44, but I was getting used to everything and how it worked, and I just noticed how there was a gap between the players and people like me. Now I travel with the team. I always have, and I wasn't trying to get close to anybody. It's just, a lot of guys would, and still can be the same way. They'll look right through you. They won't say hi or anything like that. That's fine. I can live with that. We were in New York one time on Long Island, and practice ended. And the way where Nassau County Coliseum is, there's one hotel right across the parking lot, essentially. And we had finished practice and walked across. And I see this guy catching up to me, and he says, "Hey, how you doing?" And it was Dale. And I hadn't seen who it was at first. And he spoke to me the whole way over, and he was really just normal and friendly. And I always appreciated that about Dale. So, and I always had kind of a soft spot for him ever since then. So great guy, obviously.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, like that just speaks to why the show exists, because Dale doesn't even know any of us. I don't think any of us have met Dale in person except for Derek, who's his brother. Who's on our show. So that speaks volumes too, Dan. And one thing I wanted to point out is that I noticed in the bubble in 2020, when Dale was last with the Canadiens and he was being interviewed by several Montreal media members, I noticed that he was particularly friendly with you. And you can tell, I mean, because certain other members he wasn't as open with, and even he got a little flustered with at times. So was that just a sign of your relationship with him from the very beginning? It obviously got off to a good start.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, honestly, I don't even know if Dale would know my name, and I'm not being falsely modest.
He does.
It's just, okay, he does. Cool. That's nice. But that's the thing is, too, with Montreal media, there's so many of us that it's hard to get a personal relationship with the players. And again, not to be their buddy, and I miss going in the room in a way. I hated the scrums because we're all jammed together and the microphones are in there. But you could get a moment away from the pack where somebody might just be sitting and untying their skates, and I might go over and say, "Do you mind if I sit for a moment?" and just talk to them for a bit. So I could not try to get inside information, but if I'm doing the game that night and Dale tells me, I'm trying new skates or whatever, I can work that into the game, where that's not something you can go on hockeydb.com and find out that everybody else can find out, So that's where, again, you can help sort of bring personality to life a little bit. So we miss that. But it's funny. I mean, on the flip side, now you go on the airplane and I'm like, okay, I sit at the front and I'll see players going by and I'll think, all right, you're Yolonen, I know that. And I'm not sure who you are. Like, it's been that way this year, where there's so much turnover with the players and that sort of thing, that when you see like a guy like Gallagher, all of a sudden he's been here a long time, and you miss guys like Dale Weiss and guys who always had a kind word for you.
No, I was going to ask quickly, just because you made me think about Gallagher being there a long time. Today we saw Carey Price is back at practice. Maybe just a few quick words. Do you notice a difference in the team when he's kind of around? Almost like Dale always told us, like when Shea Weber was around, there was a difference. Like you could tell, like he may not be doing the best on the ice, but what they provide off the ice and maybe to the teammates. I'm not sure if you can maybe allude or explain, but you might notice the presence more than some other people because you're around the guys that much.
Well, the best way I can put it, and if I can explain it the right way, and I thoroughly believe this, when Price and Weber were with the team and you're on the road and you get off the plane, there's a presence there. You go into a hotel, there's a presence there. They're physically big men who you kind of look at them, they're striking in their own way, right? They're, big guys. You can tell right away they're professional athletes, or if they're not, they're obviously in great shape, good looking guys, and there's just something about them. And I as somebody who's kind of paid to explain things in a hurry, I'm not really doing a good job of it right now, but presence is probably the best way to say it. So I'm thinking, if I notice that just when they're walking into a hotel, if you're a young guy and you're in the room, or even a veteran and they're around, what difference does that make? Well, I'm sure it makes a massive difference. So even today, I know a lot of the questions were about Price coming back, and some guys are tweeting that he was making a lot of good saves in practice and that sort of thing. And it'll make a difference. There's no doubt. You just hope he can get back into a game this year, and hope there's a lot of road ahead of him.
Let's get your opinion then, Dan, on the future of this team. And of course, Carey made like huge question mark around that guy. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of us, are wondering what the future is going to hold for him, but also just want to get your overall take on the rebuild or restructuring that's currently going on. What do you foresee as, how do you foresee the plan is going, and where it's going to go? I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think a lot of it will depend on what happens this summer. It's easy to sort of see a couple of these young defensemen come in and say, okay, pencil them in the top six. Well, you don't know who else is going to be here when the calendar changes to the new hockey season, or just what the roster is going to look like. But I think there's a natural excitement from anybody who watches the team, who likes the team, when you see Barron come along and think, okay, there was a first-round pick. This guy's already played a little bit in the National Hockey League, and he certainly looks like he can be and will be a steady NHL player. Jordan Harris comes in. He plays one game. He plays well. You don't want to get too far ahead, but you can't help but wonder what they're going to be like, because there's some good defensemen in the system now, some good young defensemen. Now, not all, whatever you want to say, 5 or 6 defensemen prospects, they're not all going to make the team. I wouldn't think. They all can't play. There's still some veterans around too, but it's just a nice sign that with a couple of trades and some maneuvers, now there's some things in the pipeline. And the thing is too, I'm really interested to see what happens around the draft, because all of the assets that management has now, will they try to flip them and somehow make the team immediately better? Like, I don't know. I've heard people saying at our station too, and maybe it's true, that maybe they won't be a contender next year, or maybe it's a foregone conclusion that they won't be. I don't necessarily believe that. I want to wait and see. But so far, it's been a honeymoon period. Everything's gone well from Kent and Jeff, and with Martin as well. So there'll be some bumps along the road, but I'm really, really interested to see what'll happen during the summer. But I do like the direction they're moving, because there's some good young players in the system. There's no doubt about that.
I just want to jump in too quick, Deeks. It's like you were saying, Dan, it all depends this summer. And obviously, we all know, like, I honestly believe it's up to Carey Price. Kent Hughes is probably going to ask him, do you want to stay or do you want to go? And Carey Price has every right to make decisions, stay or go. He's done everything for this team. Last year was incredible. I think every fan can agree. But like you said, it's not contender, but Jake Allen even said, he's like, we're 2 or 3 years away here. A couple moves, like you said, at the deadline with the asset management that they have. And some of these young guys are stepping up, and we've seen Nick and Cole over a point per game under Marty St. Louis. So if you had a couple pieces and you got Jake Allen and Carey Price back there, maybe another piece on D and maybe another center or something, depends if Poehling makes that jump. But I got to agree with you, Dan. I don't think it's a complete rebuild. It honestly depends where, if Carey wants to stay or go. Nobody knows. Nobody's Carey Price right now. But I just wanted to jump in there quickly and say I got to agree with your take. Not contender status, not at all. But this team is definitely a lot better than what it was the first half of this season.
I think the thing is that there's hope, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago where you looked and thought, oh, who's in the minors? Like, who's coming? Is it going to be this way for 2 or 3 years? But I don't think it will. I could be wrong. But and there's a lot of question marks. Jeff Petrie is a question mark. Can Gallagher bounce back? He said some interesting things today that I knew he thought, and I believe he's right. Again, you'll see on Twitter, well, he's washed up. Well, give the guy a full off season. He works harder than anybody, I think, to stay in shape and to be at a certain level so he can compete at a certain level. Give him that opportunity to come back and see. But that's part of the fun, is that there's a lot of question marks around the team. But I think things look pretty promising.
Yeah, Gally was on. Dale actually brought Gally on in the summer last year, and even when the guys would come on, we had I think Poehling, Evans, Nick Suzuki, a bunch of the guys came on as well, and you could just tell that. I mean, this was going to be a shortened off season, and whether they liked it or not, they may not have been ready. And it seems like you're right, Dan. If Brendan Gallagher is going to get back to the way he was, or whatever the version of Gallagher looks like under Marty St. Louis, I know he said he wants his game to evolve, but I think you're onto something there, that a full off season is what some of these guys really, really need.
And I liked what he said today. And it was St. Louis who had said a while ago, as you alluded to, that he wants to see his game evolve. And Brendan touched on that a little bit today. He said he's working on him with him on finding some soft spots without the puck, right? So not always just driving to the front of the net where you take so much abuse that's programmed into him, and he's so good at it. But, trying to kind of hide for a little bit, get open, take a shot, that sort of thing. So I'm interested to see if we see that down the stretch, and maybe that will help his game evolve and maybe be a little more productive starting, either the end of this year or the beginning of next year.
Yeah. And I'd be remiss. I just want to touch on it quickly. I know you mentioned it before, and I mean, all the Habs fans, that's all we're talking about right now. But Jordan Harris's first game, you were down in Tampa. What was it like? Obviously, the skating stood out to everybody, Marty St. Louis, but the decision-making and everything else, maybe just a quick touch on Jordan Harris. I know the fans kind of want to hear it from people that are there in person.
I think those were the two things. And it was cool, too. I spoke with him in the elevator after the Florida game. It would have been in Carolina. So they finished in Florida, then we flew to Carolina. And I said, how's it going? I said, did you like the warm-up? He said, yeah. He said, I got on the ice, and the first guy I see is Joe Thornton. And I'm thinking, he's 75 years old, and he's still performing at this level. So it was so cool, right? I mean, you forget how young they are until sometimes you're right up close to them. And like, he is literally my son's age. And but yeah, it was the things you said, the footwork, the skating, the decision-making. I am interested. I mean, let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? Yeah. He's 5'11", 175, so he's not going to be Ben Sherratt in his own zone. Can he shoot the puck hard enough? Can he be a power play guy? I don't know. I don't know him well enough yet. He looks like somebody who can, lug the puck out of his own zone. Lug probably isn't the right term because he moves pretty quickly, but it's like there's no guarantees, I guess, with him or anybody else. So, but he certainly seems to have some pretty good tools there.
Well, that's the whole thing about Montreal Canadiens fans, is that we see Justin Barron about 4 or 5 games, and maybe makes a couple mistakes, and maybe maybe he's not quite ready yet, but they're giving him a look. And then Jordan Harris just impresses in one game. That's all it takes, So leave it to Habs fans to do that, right? Yeah,
and that's part of the fun too. But you're right. I did see a few things, and I don't know why I'm on Twitter half the time, but I don't like Barron, and I'm thinking, well, let's hang on a few minutes here. Let's give the guy 20. A chance to. Yeah, it's funny. He said today. He said, my first 2 games, I felt a lot of nerves. The second 2 games with the Canadiens, obviously, I felt a lot better. But I think it was great that and I didn't know at first if it was a good idea to have them out there against such strong teams. But obviously, St. Louis, that's one of the reasons he is where he is. He knows what he's doing. And I thought they both performed pretty well against a good Tampa Bay team.
Oh yeah, to come out with a win in Tampa for Marty's sake, for one, like it was a special night for him, but to be down 2-0 to claw back, I mean, former, Stanley Cup matchup, whatever intangibles you want to insert there, but it was fun to see them get a quick 2 points. Dan, I don't want to forget about this, by the way, because I actually know one of your old buddies and colleagues. He stayed at my work at my hotel for about a year on a radio contract with us. His name is Scott Lunn. You're familiar with Scott? Yeah.
Yeah, Scott was one of my instructors at broadcasting school in 19. No, he's great. What a talented. He can do anything, Scott. He's a good man. He's a good man.
Yeah, well, he brought you up because I mentioned to him that we're all doing the show with Dale and everything. He's like, "Oh, that's great," because I'm pursuing broadcasting myself, but he was really encouraging, and I just wanted to say hi, Scott, because we'll send him this link. So, just wanted to put that out there for him. Something else I want to jump into, and that is your chemistry with your buddy Sergio Momesso on these broadcasts for the Montreal Canadiens. It's really, really clear that you guys have such a nice dynamic. You mentioned in the Montreal Gazette that you guys have a lot of fun together, and you clearly have some chemistry. So how did that sort of start with Sergio, and just talk about that relationship with him?
Well, just to go back a little further than that, it's funny. His nephew, Giulio Scandella, not Marco, Giulio, he was drafted by the Halifax Mooseheads a long time ago, and I was covering the team then, and I saw in a newspaper clipping that was his Sergio Momesso's nephew. I said, "Oh yeah, I remember Sergio," and I can remember. I think the second NHL game I ever saw, maybe the first, was in Vancouver, and I actually saw Sergio play with the Canucks. So it's kind of funny. I came to Montreal to do an audition. I kind of thought I had an inside track on this job, and when I came for the game, I thought, I don't need this job. So if Sergio is a jerk, I'm not going to take the job, because I don't want to be tied to somebody for 82 games a year plus and be miserable. So, but right away, he was good. I mean, he made me feel at ease, and we laugh a lot, maybe too much, but I contend that the people that's just who we are, and we make each other laugh, and we're really good friends. So that kind of started right away, and he doesn't have any ego. Like, he's not, like he'll say, when I played, or he'll maybe say this happened during a game, so he can relate what's going on to the game he's watching to the game that he played. But he doesn't. He's not one of these guys who leans on the fact that he played the National Hockey League, and I appreciate that about him. But he was really good to me right away, and I always appreciate that. And that's, though we do have similar senses of humor. We always, half the time, I think, jokingly, that we'll get kicked off the flight if they lose, and we're having a laugh and back in row 3. But yeah, I think we have to have a laugh during games, or we'll just go crazy. That's just the two people we are. Sometimes maybe we get a bit too silly, but life goes on.
No complaints. No complaints from our end is what all I was going to say. So, Brando, go ahead.
I was going to say the exact same thing, because, and this is not a knock against the guys that do TV, or because I know you and Sergio do TV sometimes, but there is a decent amount of people that just mute the game just to tune into you and Sergio on TSN 690 and just try to sync up the feed as close as you can. But it is enjoyable, and it just makes it, like we've said, like the games are fun again to watch. And then when your announcers are having fun, actually being, I don't know how to word it, helpful anyways, like the way you guys describe the games, because obviously you're doing radio, so you got to help people imagine it, but it just works so well. And then when you guys get on TV, it's just so much better too. So just to say, like Deke said, we just really appreciate you too, because you guys are really, really good at what you guys do.
Well, that's really kind of you. And I almost, I think for my pinned tweet, I should put directions how to sync our call with TV. And that's really nice when we hear that. And I know my boss likes it. And, but yeah, I try to have that. I do some TV games, and sometimes it'll be Mike Johnson, Craig Button occasionally, and Dave Poulin. And I try to have, I don't know if you can try to have good chemistry, but I think that's part of it is to try to work well with the other person and sort of get to know their tendencies right away. But no, it's funny. I did a game in Philadelphia not long ago. Sergio couldn't come, so I did the game by myself, and which was no problem. I mean, I'd done it before many times, a long time ago. But a play would happen. I'd be calling the play, the whistle would blow, and in the first period, like 6 times, I kind of waited a couple of seconds and thinking, all right, where are you? Like, get in here, Sergio, start talking. And then I'd turn and think, oh yeah, he's not here. So you can almost, you get used to people's rhythms, I guess, too, right? So that was kind of a jarring thing, but it was fun nonetheless.
Dan, I just have a question about your time in Halifax then, because I think that's underrated is the your development years before you got called into the big leagues, if you will. Could you just talk about maybe some of the players you had an opportunity to see, and just your experience calling games in the queue?
Yeah, my first year, the first job I had, I did road games for the Moncton Wildcats, and I want to say it was, I should know this off by heart. Maybe 2001, 2002. Corey Crawford was a 16-year-old rookie, and so was Steve Bernier. And Bernier had a good NHL career, and we all know what Corey did. So, and then I was living in the Halifax area with my family, and so I started. Actually, the Mooseheads hosted the Memorial Cup the first year. I did a little bit of radio and a little bit of TV. They had Brandon Reed, who's from Kirkland, who was an awesome junior player and played in the National Hockey League. He was electrifying, and Ramsey Abid. And I just missed the Alex Tanguay era. So I was there for quite a while, like 12 years, I suppose. So, Sidney Crosby and, Brad Richards would have been that year they hosted the Memorial Cup, and he was the best player in the country. There was a lot of them. Nathan McKinnon, I mean, I was there for the year they won the Memorial Cup, but I also did, and it was, these were TV games. I worked with Eastlink. We also did the Cape Breton Screaming Eagles, and they were at that point the PEI Rocket, now the Charlottetown Islanders. So I got to see a lot of good hockey and did a lot of university hockey too, and football and basketball and that sort of thing. But there's something I really liked about junior hockey. It was cool to see a kid show up at 16 or 17 and then see him at 19 or 20 at sometimes. Just watch them evolve. It's pretty remarkable, and there's something something pure, as silly as it might sound, when you're watching junior hockey. Sometimes I do miss it quite a bit.
Well, that's Brandon, did you have something there?
No, I'm good.
Okay. No, I just it's true though, because junior hockey is such a different element. And I was just going to transition into another question here about, we'll get to Kotkaniemi in a second, because I think that Brandon was a big Kotkaniemi fan. And you know what? In fact, let's just dive right into it then, just while we have it here. We didn't really tell you how long we were going to talk, so
That's okay, whatever.
Yeah, but Jesperi Kotkaniemi. So I think Brando would appreciate it, and maybe even Habs fans, because once in a while his name does come up. And maybe can you just talk about his time in Montreal, what you saw, and just ultimately the way the situation played out, and maybe whether or not this is good for Kotkaniemi to go have a fresh start with a team like Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, when they drafted him and when they took him here, I think they were looking for some positives. It was a pretty bleak time, and he played well to start, for sure. And he had a really good personality. We talk about personalities. I mean, we know how bright he is, and there was something kind of refreshing about him. And I thought he looked good as a rookie. I can remember a lot of strong skating through neutral ice and making some cross ice passes, and thinking, okay, this kid can build on something. And then now I look back and I think he should have stayed in Finland for at least a year, and they should have taken their time with him. And I guess I understand why they didn't. I'm sure there's different reasons why they kept him. I always, the thing about Kotkaniemi, and I don't know, I haven't watched him a lot since he's been to Carolina. He'll get stronger. His balance concerned me. Like, there's too many times where he would just fall or you get knocked off the puck, and I don't even think it was necessarily a function of not growing into his body yet. It was just there's a bit of an awkward skating style there, and balance, as I said, was a concern. So it went downhill pretty quickly. He didn't see eye to eye with Ducharme. That was a problem. So it took us all obviously by surprise what happened with Carolina, and he'll get a chance to kind of develop on a better team and in a better, I won't say better organization, but obviously a deeper team. And he's financially secure now. I don't know what his ceiling will be. There can be a curse when you're picked third overall. not all third overalls and not all drafts are created equally. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're bound for superstardom or anything close to it. But I think he has the parts to have a good long career. But I don't know. After that first year, there was something missing for me. So whether it would have made a difference had he stayed in Finland, I guess we'll never know. But you can only wish him the best because he certainly seems like a good kid.
Yeah, and I have to agree with that. And just to switch gears just a little bit there, it's my kind of question is I like asking people around the team a lot is there anybody this year it's like the unsung hero or maybe not appreciated as much by fans? I know everybody's latched on to Cole Caulfield. I mean, I was at the Bell Center when he scored against Toronto there 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. I mean, the place is a different pop when Caulfield scores, but like we looked at guys like Pizzetta and stuff, like the fan favorites now, kind of like how Dale Weiss came into the team. Like not too many people knew about him, but something about Pizzetta just fans are latching on to. But is there a player right now that you're kind of watching, you're really enjoying his play?
Well, I don't know if he falls under this category of what you said, but I think, and I'm partial to him because of his story. But Chris Weidman went to Russia basically to get another chance in the National Hockey League, and I had a chance to talk with him in Buffalo early in the season for a piece that I was going to write, and I never wrote it. But just there were some long nights there, and he was isolated, obviously, and it was during the worst of COVID. So nobody could come and visit him, and that sort of thing. Eventually his wife came, but I think that he's done a nice job. I think he's done everything that they would have expected of him. He's run the power play, which hasn't been a great power play statistically. We know that, but I think overall he's done a pretty good job this year for a guy. And again, it's kind of a thing that I really appreciate how he set his mind to something and he was able to kind of fulfill it. So I like that. Pizzetta obviously gave them a lot of spark. I say it the past tense. He hasn't played in a while because he's been hurt and things are getting crowded. So those are a couple of names too. But it's funny. I mean, Jake Allen said today, it almost feels like 3 seasons in one, where you go back to even November and you knew it was off the rails right away. So not a lot of good stories from then. But then after the coaching change, there's certainly a few good things to latch on to. And I mean, you're right. Caulfield is obviously the main one, but I think in any season with any team, as bad as the season can be, you can find some nuggets. Montembeault, I think there's a guy I didn't know a lot about until he came here, and you could see his game evolve. Early when he was playing, he was giving up a lot of rebounds, and then they cleaned that up. Not to say he's been perfect every night he's had the chance, but he's been given a chance, and I think he's done a pretty good job. So I appreciate what he's done too.
That's a good one too, Sam Montembeault, a guy who had a rough start, just like the rest of the team, but then was able to get some key wins and just contribute. And I think that's what all guys want to do in some way, shape, or form. Everybody wants to feel like they can contribute, right, Dan? And if that's not the case, then I imagine that's got to be the hardest thing sometimes for guys.
Yeah, I would think so. There have been so many injuries this year too, and that's certainly not isolated to the Canadiens. But guys will go away. Like even Gallagher. We were on that road trip, and then he came and started practicing in Tampa. But he'd been out a while, and you see kind of I won't say change of the guard, but young guys are coming in, and you can be the forgotten guy. I always wonder. I think that'd be an interesting kind of a thing for a documentary or a long written piece about the isolation of players who are injured for long periods of time. I even look at Christian Dvorak, and here's a guy who missed 7 games, and then he came back and played 7. Then he missed 19 after he got hit in Minnesota, and you kind of forgot about him. He got off to a slow start, but now he's playing quite well. I know I checked over the last 8 games, his face-off winning percentage is just under 56%. You can see him. He'll go out in overtime and take the face off. And if they win, he gets off. So he's someone that I asked St. Louis about him today, that he's finally getting into game shape because he was hurt so much this year. He couldn't really find that. So yeah, it's you look for good stories. Hopefully he can finish strong. And then you start to wonder, where does he fit in the pecking order next year down the middle? So as we said earlier, there's lots of questions to be answered. Absolutely.
And Deeks, I'm just going to ask one more here, then you can go for your last one, just so we don't keep Dan all night. But sure. If let's say you have Kent Hughes' ear, Murray St. Louis' ear. You watch all these games. I mean, you're there every game. What's one piece you're looking forward to? Hopefully, they kind of address in the offseason here.
Second line center. I guess I kind of just alluded to it in a roundabout way, but doesn't it always seem that the Canadiens are looking for growth and help down the middle? It's to me, there's a drop off with respect to everybody. There's Suzuki, and then there's the other guys. I don't know, and I've been impressed by Evans. I think he has more offensive ability than I realized, but I don't think he can be a legit number 2 in the NHL. I'm not sure that Poehling can either, and I don't think Dvorak's speed is there. So you sort of have 3 guys who are fighting for that second. Yeah. So I think, and it's hard to bring somebody in who can be somebody who can take some of the load off Suzuki. And look, there's a story. He's played every game, and he plays heavy minutes. He plays important minutes. He takes physical abuse, but he's just out there. But he's going to need that sort of support, I think. Not that you want to play him any less minutes, but maybe get him out against maybe the team's second defensive pair or whatever it is. But that's, again, we always used to hear Marc Bergevin say it, and he was right. It's not easy to get help down the middle, but I think they're going to need it.
And just quickly, Deeks, I want to touch on that, and I'm not rehashing the drama, but like, you look what Phil Deneau's done for Kopitar. It frees him up, and now that you see this go on, Suzuki's going to need that help here in the next few years. It's like you said, he's playing the power play, penalty kill. He's playing the heavy minute, top line. You do need that. You need a strong 1-2 punch. And I know fans, we were excited, and they very well still could, like you said, they could pan out. We don't know. But I have to agree. That's a great point, Dan, is that 2C, it's much needed, especially when you got the guys playing those heavy minutes.
It's funny, too. One of the arguments has been, is Nick Suzuki a legit number 1 centerman? Well, he is. He's their legit number 1 centerman. I don't know if he's a superstar or whatever. That's another topic for another day, but he's proven that he can be that guy. So how they insulate him, that'll be pretty interesting to see if they can even find somebody before next season starts.
The draft might have something to do with that if they can get Shane Wright. But
yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
But there's no guarantees there ever. You mentioned Marc Bergevin. We had a couple pictures of you, Dan, that we just wanted to throw up because this is a nice shot of you in the studio. But there's one of you, Marc Bergevin, right here with Sergio as well.
In St. Louis,
In St. Louis, yeah, you can see the banners there behind him. And also this last shot of you, this is your Twitter picture, I believe, in Madison Square Garden. So I just thought I'd ask you, you mentioned that MSG is your favorite other place to call a game other than the Bell Center. Just talk about why that is, and just maybe why you like certain rinks versus others, just the atmosphere, whatever direction you want to take that.
Well, it's funny that I'm actually looking at that picture. It's on my wall over to my left of Madison Square Garden. That was a TV game I worked with Dave Poulin, and I got the camera woman. I said, do you mind taking my phone and taking a picture of this? And if you ever want to get a picture taken, if there's a camera person around, they're the people to do it. They don't just, they know all about framing and everything like that. So I love the energy there. I can remember when the Canadiens played them in the playoffs. I guess it was 2018?
17, I believe. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
So we walk in for the first game, and one of the ushers says, "You all know you're going to lose this series, right?" I said, "Yeah, okay." I'm thinking I'm in New York, So
was it Jimmy Fallon? No, I'm just kidding.
No, it wasn't. But it's like the roof inside. It's it's what do they call it? The world's most famous sports arena, and I love going there. It's really cool. I like Winnipeg to call games because it's intimate. The fans are great. There's not many places that I don't like. There's, Edmonton's a brand new, beautiful building, but you're so far from the action. It was almost like they made the booth an afterthought. So that's kind of rough. But for me, it's more about the fans and their interaction and their energy level. Tampa, where we just were, the energy's always high there, and it should be. They're good every year. So that's kind of cool. I'm always remind myself that I'm fortunate to get to go to these places and call these games and have these experiences, whether they're good or not, and they're overwhelmingly good. I can't. There's a couple of places where there might not be many fans, or it's just a terrible vantage point, but still, you're watching great hockey. So I'm lucky.
Well, my final one for you, just because you mentioned also in like the people that you looked up to and that have helped you in your career. You mentioning Chris Cuthbert, Pierre Oud from RDS. Mr. Lebu himself. So what about these guys? What would you say about the guys that, guys, girls, whoever, that have helped you, I don't know, develop your style, or maybe that's a two-part question. Maybe touch on those two, and maybe how you sort of decided to develop your style and how you want to call a game.
Yeah, I guess with me, I'm more, I don't know, traditional, I suppose. I'm not a screamer, although sometimes I'll hear the replay of Kotkaniemi's goal in the playoffs against Toronto and think, man, you yelled too much. But then I think, well, you kind of needed to. The moment needed it. Same thing when Lehkonen scored. I was like, and I'm a victim of hearing it over and over from the station. I started to pick myself apart. I was like, did you really have to roar that loud? And then I think, nah.
Is that one thing you're going to miss about Brent Kulak or not? Because you
not as much as Sean Campbell will. He always he kind of brought that to life at the station. But
your Kulak call was, I'm sorry to just your Kulak call was so much fun.
Well, that's okay. So there you go. I can play that into what we're talking about. I've never had any set kind of pet calls. When I first started, my boss said, you need a call. When the Canadiens win, you should come up with something. And I said, no, I can't do that. I don't want to have anything predetermined. So when Brett scored the first goal that sort of didn't start anything, but it was a big goal. I think it put the Canadiens ahead in the third period. And I just kind of yelled Kulak, and then Campbell got a hold of it. It kind of went from there. But no, I think it's just, I've had my favorites. And I think from watching for years, you kind of think, okay, I like this guy. And then you subliminally kind of gets into your style. And, with Pierre and I have become friends, travel a lot together. And I picked his brain from time to time, or we just talk a little bit about doing, play-by-play. I don't get to see him because we call the same games, but obviously I see highlights and hear highlights, and I know how good he is. I'll say that, even though it's in French and I don't see a lot, I see enough to know how great he is. And I mentioned Chris Cuthbert too. I've always liked his style. I like the fact that I think he has a great feel for the game, and I think that's important. That's what I've always tried to do, is try to anticipate the right way, and I don't always do it, but of what's coming, when the big moments are. I don't think you can be here all the time with your call. You can't be screaming, and an offside is not the game-winning goal in Game 7. You've got to have room to go up over the course of a game. And I like talking about calling games. Like, if I mentioned Sean Campbell, who works with me at TSN 690, he does our Laval games and he fills in for me. And it's just a neat job. It's kind of an interesting discipline. And I listen to a lot of different play-by-play guys, to not even to try to add to what I do, but just because I find it fascinating. So I think it's just over time you develop a style, and you hope you get it right. And we're all still trying to get it right. I know that much.
Well, you mentioned it. I just want to say one more thing about commentators, just because he's on his last season, Rick Jenneret, and he was like, I live half an hour from Buffalo. I'm in Niagara Falls. So, I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't understand why this guy was so excited about announcing the end of the period. Right. So,
yeah. But listen, and different guys work in different markets, right? I mean, yeah, it's what, there's some guys who I'll hear, and respectfully, I'll say to me, they're over the top. Like, I could never do that, but they're loved. They're loved within their own markets. And it's fascinating to me how it works. And it's not only in hockey, like in different sports. I listen to a lot of baseball, and there's guys who I think, man, I could never do that. But I think you have to just be yourself, right? You can't put on any, be excited in a fake kind of way, or people will see right through you. So I do think you have to be yourself, and that really shows.
100%. If fans will pick up on a fake call or anything just like that. And I think that's why I said at the start, a lot of people will, nothing against the TV guys, they choose to listen to you and Sergio or whoever you're partnered up with. But my one last question, I just had to think of it. Could be anybody, but what would your dream combo be? Who's your color commentator that you wish you could do one show with? If I don't know if you've already done your dream scenario or who it is.
That's a good question. I'd like to work a game with Ray Ferraro. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think a lot of people see Ray as, if not the top of the business, he's right there. So, I mean, we both work for the same network. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen at some point. There's guys from over the years. I mean, I'm old enough to remember, of course, when Bob Cole and Harry Neal worked together, and I always thought Harry had a good sense of humor, and he was fun to listen to. But I think that would be pretty cool to work with Ray. And look, I've worked with Dave Poulin and Craig Button and Mike Johnson, and they're all really good in their own way. And it is, I love that part, working with different people to try. And I worked with Jamie McLennan once. I worked with Cheryl Pounder once in a couple of TV games. And I loved it all, to try to get to weave things in quickly and learn their style and vice versa. But yeah, I would say Ray Ferraro.
That's a good one. That's a good one. And the reason I say that too is because after every goal, he is so full of energy, and he just gives such a quick, like, he just hits it every time, right? He describes the play in poetry in motion, right? So we'll have to clip this. And hi, Ray, if you're listening or watching. Give Dan a chance, man. Come on. Well, Dan, we just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. Again, you were able to bring one of our hosts back onto the show just for you being here. And that's not just a pump tires. That's a genuine feeling of appreciation for what you do. So thank you.
Oh, listen, thanks. And I didn't get a chance to say anything to Nick. I haven't met her, but I've seen some of the work she does, and she's brilliant. So that's great. And say hi to Dale for me too, if you would.
Yes, we sure will. We sure will.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. Really appreciate that.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right, folks. Well, that's Dan Robertson. Thank you for watching, and you guys know which buttons to push if you're enjoying the show. So thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.